There we go. So it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Marty Becker. Dr. Becker is a prominent veterinarian who has dedicated his life to teaching pet owners how to prevent or reduce fear, anxiety, and stress in pets. He practices veterinary medicine at the VCA North Idaho Animal Hospital. He's a well-known communicator, having appeared regularly on Good Morning America for 17 years, and has written 23 books that have sold almost 8 million copies. I don't know if you can see this when I hold it up. I don't have my own view of myself up right at the moment, but it's From Fearful to Fear-Free. This is one of his books. And, inside, I don't know if you can see this, but one of the clues that a dog has a phobia against thunderstorms is if you see them hiding under the couch. So there's a dog peeking out from under the couch. Dr. Becker has prepared a talk on the 10 things you probably don't know about your dog, the 10 things you probably don't know about your cat, and 10 things that you can do to help your pet be healthier and happier. And he will be eager to take your questions. So welcome, Dr. Marty Becker.
Thank you, Kathleen. I don't know if I'm getting a kiss here from our Pomeranian. But, would you guys all agree there's only one greatest pet in the world and every family has her or him? I think that's an adage. I've been in 91 countries, all 50 states, all of the Canadian provinces except the extreme Maritimes, and in all 7 continents. And I've actually lectured on all 7 continents, believe it or not, mostly about the human-animal bond and things about the healing power of pets, and more recently about reducing fear, anxiety, and stress in pets. You'll get a kick out of this. My daughter's in Canada right now speaking at a chain of veterinary hospitals called VCA. She's a well-known trainer. My wife is babysitting our granddaughter's 13. And when I told her I was going to talk to people from Mensa today, she goes, what do people that are with Mensa look like? So I guess I better take a look across the top of that bar and see what people from Mensa look like. Hope we can have a little fun today. I hope this is what you would consider some edutainment. And I hope you're not just coming because you couldn't get into the veterinarian or it was too expensive, you wanted a second opinion, but I'm happy to do that as well. It's very, very, very hard to get into see a veterinarian right now. So I'll give you a little background. I was born and raised on a farm in southern Idaho, and I think all of you, when you hear Idaho, you think of Idaho potatoes. It's amazing what a global awareness of Idaho potatoes there are. You know, we had a small dairy herd, a small beef herd, had chickens, pigs, horses, goats. It's kind of like the Ark unloaded there. And I still remember my dad was, this was back when the dairy herd was 30 cows. And each of the cows had a name. I remember we used to sell chicken eggs to the local grocery store. And one of my chores as a young kid was to go out to the chicken house and pick up the eggs in the morning. And it was dark out there. I always thought there was ghosts around every corner of the potato cellar and the haystacks. And so I'd want to go out there real fast. And they were in these little cubicles with sawdust. And some of them were over there on these perches. You'd have to reach under the chickens to get the eggs most of the time. And a lot of times they'd peck you and it'd take quite a while. So I finally figured out, hey, I want to get in away from the ghosts. I want to eat and it's cold. So I just go in front of these little boxes and just go, wah, like that. And all the chickens would fly off and there'd be feathers floating in the air. And I could just pick these things up real fast. Worked pretty good. And about 2 weeks later, my dad caught me. Scared the bejesus out of me when I came out the door and he tapped me on the shoulder. My God, there is a ghost. Tapped me on the shoulder. And he goes, that was efficient, but that's not the way we do things. And talked to me about taking care of animals. The better you took care of them, the better they took care of you. And so there's always lessons like that. It was 1963 when Luke, the Labrador Retriever, Luke lived in an old calving shed out away from by our shop. He literally had a log chain hooked on him. He was intact, which means he was not neutered. And back then, they'd go chase their girlfriend, mile away, 2 miles away, 3 miles away. I don't know if you ever been around a dog that was in heat, but boy, can they find their way out, and they are determined. They'll excavate 4 feet down to get under a fence if there's a dog in heat. So it was in February of the same year the Beatles invaded America, and it was a blinding snowstorm. I mean, a true blizzard with howling winds. The snow was going across these frozen potato fields horizontally. And I said, Dad, can we bring Luke in the house? And he said, oh, he's from this Labrador region from Canada, and he's this and that. And he resisted, I persisted, and finally said, all right, on the porch, on the linoleum. We all know, I don't think there's anybody too young that doesn't know that's vinyl flooring. Well, Luke had never been on a surface like that. So when he got inside the porch there, he just splayed out like he was on ice. And he infantry crawled over to the kitchen door, and I can still see him. He took one way and he looked the other way, and it was like, man, this is nice in here. You've had me in that old crappy calving shed, and you guys are living in here. And he came in and he leaned against my dad, the old lab leaner thing. And all of a sudden he just took off and did the zoomies around our house, and then flew into a sideways slam into the couch. And his old tail was beating, boom, 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 boom. And this, oh God, Dad, look at him. We can't put him back outside. And well, Luke became an indoor-outdoor dog from there on. Yes, he still had a utilitarian role. He hunted, he retrieved, he herded cattle, he guarded our stuff, he alarm barked, but he now took on an emotional role. And around the civilized world, especially in North America and Western Europe, we saw this migration of biblical proportions. If you were rural, it was from the barnyard to the backyard to the back door to the bedroom. If you grew up urban, and it was from a doghouse that your dad probably built on Sunday that used to be, actually was a separate house out in the yard. It went from outside to inside to underneath the covers. And that's really where the human animal bond had life breathed into it. And one of the 23 books I've written is called The Healing Power of Pets. I guess I got a copy here. I could show you this actually taken, it's gonna shine you, taken in our house. I wrote it with a New York Times reporter. Pets just don't make you feel good, they're good for you. And before the last 25 years, we had intuited it, we had experienced it, we had witnessed it maybe, but now science painted in the numbers of this is actually true. And there hasn't been another domesticated species in 5,000 years. And really only dogs and cats are the only ones. I got a cat laying over here, sitting over here on one side. I got the one dog I picked up, the other dog sacked out on the couch, and 2 outside playing with the chipmunks that have come out. But they're the only ones that have really broken down our hearts and homes in mass. And I can touch on this a little bit later, but one of the things I think is really interesting about the relationship between dogs and people, if you have a heart attack, you're 5 times more likely to be alive a year later if you have a dog. And that's mainly related to exercise, but also related to people wanting to get well. They use stuff for agoraphobia. They use them for PTSD. They help people recover from cancer. There's all sorts of things. The one thing that everybody on this Zoom meeting, if you have a dog, when you start petting your dog at night, and some of you have a rooter and some of you have a raker. What I mean by that, some of you, when you quit petting them, they use their claws and they dig on you like, what, do you think you're gonna quit? And others will root up under your hand and lift your hand up. Actually, some of them lift it right up on you. Some are rooters and rakers. And it's not that they're a tick and sucking the life force out of us. In fact, what happens after about 60 to 90 seconds, there's this massive release of biochemicals. Oxytocin, the hug hormone, prolactin, that's what you see when a mother nurses a baby. Phenylethylamine, that active ingredient in chocolate that is so satiating, and the pet gets exactly the mirror image release of biochemicals. So it's reciprocal. And now when you wonder why we came so close together, that a dog would forsake its own species to be with a human, you realize that there's really a biochemical basis for it. I'm gonna shift and talk a little bit about stuff you may not know about a dog. Well, your Mensa, you might know about it, but we'll see. And then I'm going to talk some pet care tips if I can. So I've been a veterinarian. I've been married for 45 years to the love of my life, who's off babysitting the granddaughter today. Live in a log home in the very tip of northern Idaho. In fact, if you guys are Jeopardy watchers, the final Jeopardy question when Ken Jennings that week in January 2020 was exactly related to where I live. It said, this county touches 2 states in a foreign country and is located in what is called the chimney of this state. The only problem with that question, I've never heard it called the chimney. It's called the panhandle. But I live in extreme northern Idaho, and I live 6 miles from the Canadian border. In fact, if we come down our driveway to the highway, if we go 17 miles to the left, it's Bonners Ferry, Idaho. Go 17 miles to the right, and it's Creston, British Columbia. So love being that close to Canada. So let's talk a little bit about some things and see if any of these are a surprise to you. I don't know if you ever wondered why dogs have most dogs have a white tip on their tail. If you're walking just on the street, you'll be surprised how many dogs have a white tip on their tail, or at least white hairs on the end of their tail. What that's from, back when dogs didn't have their supper delivered in a can or out of a bag, they actually had to help hunt for supper. And so dogs that had a white tail, you could see their tail more easily in dry grass and something that is brown. So it's just through breeding that more dogs ended up on with a white tail. Some of you may have, if you ever had to treat your dog, you're grooming it, or you're using ear medication, or just looking at them closely, give them a massage, you'll notice a little pouch on the lateral side of their pinna or their ear. And if people go, what is that little flap for? What is that little pocket for? That is actually a hinge. So when a dog pins its ears down or puts its ears down, that's a little hinge that allows it to fold down. If you ever look from a dog from the rear, if you think of their anus as the 100 on a target for darts, down there about 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock, there's 2 whorls of hair. Those are to capture scent. So anal glands, a lot of people get frustrated with their dog. They go outside, they sniff, 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 sniff. I call it checking your pee mail, because they're always looking to leave a scent. And same thing with feces. I call it dung shui. They are very carefully placing this fecal flag that they are marking territory. And that's why when a lot of times when dogs poop, they scratch real fast as to spread scent. Dogs that pee try to get it higher and higher on a tree, on a street sign, on a bush. And that's also why you'll see female dogs sometimes do a handstand to try to put their urine up higher. But those anal glands down there, they are full of scent. And one thing that's really interesting in some studies, you guys have a dog probably loves to go for a walk. If you were to take that feces from that walk and put it in a Ziploc bag on some ice, and then you go to a place your dog hates to go, which probably the vet, might be the groomer, might be the boarding. You take that and put it in a Ziploc and put it on ice. If you were to take that to a place, say outside a dog park or someplace neutral, the one that comes from the happy place, dogs will come up and sniff, 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 and then they'll mark over it. The one that comes from the place where they're scared, they'll start to go up to it and they just flare off like they've hit a screen in Star Wars, where they pull up an impenetrable screen because there's fear pheromones inside those feces. One thing that's really interesting is dogs can sniff, they can breathe in and out at the same time independently with each nostril. The canid species is really unique that way, and dogs will start sniffing with their right nostril. And if the smell is familiar or non-adverse, they switch to the left nostril. And the reason for that is the left side of the brain so if it's on the right nostril, it goes to the left side of the brain, and the left side of the brain is with positive emotion. If it's with the right nostril, that's negative emotion, such as fear, anxiety, and stress. So it'd be really hard for you to detect this, but the right hemisphere of the brain is novel and looks at threats and arousal. And there is also a right paw and a left paw preference. The way you can tell a right paw or left paw preference is you can see when they start to walk, watch which foot they put forward first. That's their paw preference. Another thing you can do is take a Kong toy or something that's a really high value treat and see which paw they hold it with. So like if you have a Kong toy and you have a little peanut butter or something in it, if they're right paw preference, they'll hold it with their right paw. The other thing you can do is, the third thing is to take like sticky tape and put it somewhere. You either have to use your right paw or your left paw to get it off and see which paw that they switch to. So more female dogs are right paw preference and more male dogs are left paw preference. And the way this makes a difference, if you are going to pick a dog at the shelter, you would want to know if it's right or left paw preference. So if they're a left paw preference, that's going to be the right side of the brain that deals with negative emotion. And if they're a left paw preference, it's going to be the right side of the brain, which deals with positive emotion. I work with Temple Grandin, who you guys all know. We become really close friends, and animals' number one fear from birth is the fear of falling. And I thought it was a fear of fire, but Temple tells me that's a learned fear. Maybe you guys have a different knowledge of that, but the fear of falling. And so what do we do in a veterinary hospital? We lift them off their feet and put them on an elevated slippery table. Now that wasn't too smart. So now when I'm part of founded something called Fear Free. If you guys get a chance in the next day or two, go to Fear Free Happy Homes. There's no charge for the website. It's the best place on the planet on emotional well-being of animals. We have dogs, cats, birds, horses, soon to be dairy cattle. So you'll be having Chobani yogurt or Tillamook cheese from Happy Cows, and eventually it's going to be more emotional well-being of pigs, of goats, of sheep, really looking at a global aspect. So why said recording stopped? Oh, there it went again. Why do dogs drink out of the toilet? That's the title of one of my books here. Well, it's pretty simple when you think about it. It gets magically refreshed several times a day. It has a larger evaporative surface, so it stays cooler. And also it's porcelain. The worst kind of dog dishes are stuff that is plastic, because plastic will usually get some kind of a bacteria built into it unless you have one with microban. But the main thing, and they've studied this, almost all toilets leak a little bit. And for a dog or a cat with their incredible hearing, guess what? That is a spring that has been installed in the house. So if I have a choice between tepid water that's just in a bowl and I can drink out of a spring, I'm going to drink out of the spring. By the way, one of the things I would recommend to you if I were your veterinarian is to have fountains, and especially for cats. Cats come from desert dwellers. They're almost all a little bit dehydrated, some chronically dehydrated, and running water, and especially the ones that have the water comes down in a little waterfall and then it hits a ramp and then it goes into a basin. So some cats like to lick it from the waterfall, catch it in the waterfall. Some like it to lick it off the ramp, and some like it right out of the bowl. The reason dogs act like Cirque du Soleil performers again and hike their leg to pee, they're communicating via urine, feces, and pheromones. So these vertical surfaces are like highway markers along the way. And you know what? The higher the message, the more likely it is to get noticed. And that's why some dogs, as I mentioned, female dogs will do a handstand just to try to leave a message. I always think, one time, you mentioned, Kathleen, in the intro, I did TV in New York for Good Morning America for 17 years. I did Dr. Oz from the time the show started until it ended. I was on every show you can think of. And one time I was doing a dog walk. I was a celebrity master of ceremonies, this dog walk in New York, and there were 5,000 dogs on a dog walk. And where they started, there was one big tree in this park. And I swear every dog peed on that tree. And I was thinking of an old skit that Johnny Carson did when he did Karnak, when he had the envelope and then he opens it up and he goes, "It was 3-dog night." And he opens it up. "What's a bad night for a tree?" And I was thinking 5,000 dogs peeing on one tree, that poor tree. But think of the 5,000th dog that was reading all those messages. That's like when we went to Antarctica for 3 weeks and come back and you got 2,000 emails like, oh my God, I'm going to shoot myself. Why do dogs roll in smelly stuff? That little Pom I showed you earlier, she rolled in turkey crap this morning. So she's got a green collar around her neck. First she was eating it, then she's rolling in it. Now, why do you want to do that? Well, I remember a Far Side cartoon with a male dog and he's walking up to the door to meet his date. He's got flowers in his hands and he sniffs his date in the doorway and his tail was wagging and he goes, "I don't know what you're wearing, but it sure does stink." And I think one theory is that smelly stuff is like celebratory. It's like a human rolling in a fall leaf size thing of $100 bills or thing, and just like in celebration. But the true answer is it comes back to when I had to hunt to eat, and it's better to mask your scent. So if you're a predator, masking your scent has tactical advantages, and that's what it is. And by the way, I think I could outdo any of you for the worst thing a dog has rolled in. We have live on a big horse ranch again up here in northern Idaho. Sirloin, our Labrador Retriever, brought in a rotted skunk carcass teeming with maggots. That's personally the worst that I've seen. So why for some of us, I see a few of you look about as old as me. I'm soon to be 70. And why did we not too many dogs have as many phobias back then? It's kind of like, why didn't we see peanut allergies back then, I guess? Temple Grandin says it's because these dogs aren't sensitized to a lot of noises. So back in the day, Luke, the Labrador Retriever, was outside around every noise, and a lot of dogs are sheltered. We do know it has a genetic component as well, but most dogs don't live outdoors and not sensitized or desensitized to loud noises like our grandparents' dogs were. So when thunderstorms come, it's not just the clap of thunder. Before it's that, there's atmospheric weather changes. There's flashes of light, maybe in the distance. There's the pounding of rain on the roof. And here's the big one. There's a buildup of static electricity in the dog's coat. And if you have a dog that has a thunderstorm phobia, this may be worth your time today just to hear this one. 40% of the dogs, if you just take a unscented fabric softener sheet and rub it over the trunk of their body, they won't have thunderstorm phobias. So when you think, I don't know what your dogs are like, thunderstorms hit, that's why a lot of dogs want to go on tile, concrete, in the basement, even get into a bathtub or get into a car because they are grounded. All right, this is I don't know, may Kathleen, should I ask a question? What do you think? Now, this is from a survey of veterinary emergency hospitals last year. What is the #1 foreign body taken out of a cat and the #1 foreign body taken out of a dog? Should we put it up to guess?
Go ahead. I think I'll unmute everybody so that we can respond verbally.
Or you could put it in the chat and we could see who answers it right later.
Whichever. So put it in the chat or just speak up. You want to give the question again?
There was a survey done last year of veterinary emergency hospitals. And by the way, what's your largest hockey arena in Canada? And how many people does it seat? And you'll know why I'm asking this in a minute.
The Rogers Center.
How many does it hold?
God
knows. I don't know, 15, 20,000.
15, 20,000.
Well, that
There's
might be
only, yeah. So we look at an NFL stadium down here. Most of them are in the 70 to 80,000 range. That will hold every companion animal veterinarian in the United States. There are more practicing attorneys in New York City than there are companion animal veterinarians in the United States. It's very, very, very small. Oh, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just tell you what it is. All right. For cats, it's hair ties. And hair ties, part of it's because it has your scent on it, has a little string. For dogs, by far, it's women's underwear. So dogs love clothing that has mom or dad's scent on it. So that's why they choose shoes. That's why they have choose socks. And why more women than men's? It's simply there's a larger genital opening on females. So I've had one dog that did the same thing 12 times. And it is not an inexpensive surgery to do intraabdominal surgery and go into the thing. So I was said, listen, this dog's a laundromat. I mean, you've got to quit coming in. You're putting my kids through private school. So you just gotta restrict access. That's all I can say. By the way, Diane Sawyer, I did Good Morning America, when she left Good Morning America, that was one of the segments we had on there. It was about how to do a Heimlich maneuver on a dog, and it was talking about the most common things dogs choke on. It's fish heads, it's pieces of rib bone, it's apple cores, and then it came time to the number one thing, and it was women's underwear. And there was people. It's a long story, but I've never seen in 17 years, all the cameramen left the cameras laughing, and there was nobody talked for 45 seconds. Charlie Gibson was on the floor laughing, and it was just a whole crazy moment, but she showed that on her video package when she left. Let's talk a little bit about cats. Why do cats always land on their feet? Well, if you watch them, they are like Cirque du Soleil performers or X Games. If you always watch the X Games, what do? They do their rotations and then they spot the ground. And when cats start to fall, they immediately turn their head and follow the ground, and then their body twists and they rotate their head, and the rest of the body starts spiraling so that their feet are oriented to the ground. They spread out, and right before they hit, they completely relax. And by the way, next time you're bathing your dog and you're in between the shampoo or the rinse, or you're going for a towel and you don't want them to shake all over the place, all you have to do, let me use this, make sure it's closed. If this was the dog's nose, all I got to do is put one finger on the top and one finger on the bottom, like I'm holding an egg. Just that easy, and a dog cannot shake dry. If they cannot get their head in this motion where they're going back and forth, they can't shake dry. So as light a touch as you do, one finger on top, one finger on the bottom, they can't shake dry. They used to think cat feces had curative properties. So the ancient Romans, lots of recipes in ancient Roman for feline feces had healing powers, but they were drinking out of lead cups too, so maybe they weren't that smart. But one of their favorite things for wounds and burns in battle was a concoction of honey, cat dung, and spices and fat to heal burns and the wounds. Oof, go for the honey part. I can't believe they're in war you get rubbed cat dung on your wound. One of the things that's really interesting about cats, only cats, camels, and giraffes have a natural gait that is this. So if you ever watched a dog walk, it's alternate limbs. So right front, left rear, and then left front, right rear. And so that's their natural gait is what you call a trot. And cats are different. They step with both left paws, then both right paws, both left paws and right paws. And that, in horses, that's called a pace, if any of you have that. But it's one of those things you just don't notice. Your dog, about once every 60 seconds when they're awake, they will have a tear come out. Most normally it comes out of their right nostril. And they'll take their tongue and they'll wipe it across, they'll use their tongue and wipe it across this way, and then they wipe across the other way. It happens, you don't even notice. It's like background noise. What they're doing is keeping their nose wet, because a wet nose picks up molecules of scent a lot easier. Hope you guys are learning something here. You guys are all probably pretty good at Scrabble. Let me give you 2 words that'll help you win at Scrabble here, okay? Cats are good self-groomers, and if you've ever felt a cat's tongue, Hold on a second here. I'll get my prop. Come here, Tally. Come here, Tally. Oh my God. She's like, what in the hell are you doing here, Doc? There's Tally Whack Whack. There you go, girl. Okay, you can go back to sleep. Their tongue reminds me of a caterpillar wearing golf shoes. It is the strangest feeling thing that's actually one of the things that I really like about them. But they pull out hair, groom, and they swallow it. And since hair is indigestible, it comes up one way or another. It comes out the back end, which you probably don't look in your cat box enough to see the hair that's mixed with the feces, or it comes out the front end. And it's really not a ball, it's more of a slippery, slimy cigar. But the scientific name for a hairball is a trichobezoar, Trichobezoar. One of our veterinary school intramural teams, we were the trichobezoars. Why don't cats need sunglasses? Well, cats are different than humans, dogs, and most other animals in that their pupils reduce to slits rather than little tiny circles. And because the cat's eyelids close at right angles to the vertical pupil, a cat can further reduce the amount of light entering the eye by bringing the eyelids closer and closer together. So this works similar like a shutter on an old camera, but it goes to a slit like this, and then the lids come down like this, can make a little tiny pinpoint. All right, who hears better? We know dogs and cats hear better than humans, but the cat wins. Cats can hear 3 times more frequencies than humans can. Technically, a human's hearing is about 20 hertz. A dog is 45 hertz with a cat at 80 kilohertz, almost twice the hearing acuity of a dog. And they're able to hear a mouse walking on the ground 30 feet away. They have amazing hearing. Here's one you'll love. This is for dogs and cats, really. You always hear dog ears, dog beers. In dog beers, I'd be dead. Dog ears system. Every dog ears 7 human years. No, it is not. So a 1-year-old dog and a 1-year-old cat is equivalent of an 18-year-old human. Now, I'm making a little generality here. So that Pomeranian puppy, she was a full adult size at 9 months and went into heat. A bigger dog, you take a Saint Bernard, a Great Dane. They're not fully grown until they're up to 18 months. But most dogs, most cats, 1 year, 18 human years, full adult size and sexually mature. Yeah, and then for dogs, every year thereafter is 3 human years, and for a cat, every year after is 4 human years. So if you had a 10-year-old cat, that's the equivalent of 54-year-old human. So 18 for the first year, and then the next 9 years, 4 times 9 is 36. So 36 plus 18 equals 54. So maybe you'll have a little fun doing that with your own pets, figuring out that age. So I've got another little dog over here. He's all collapsed over, all I see is feet. Small dogs, by the way, age a lot slower than large dogs. One thing that's interesting, if you've ever had a boxer, a golden retriever, a flat-coated retriever, there's almost certain breeds that almost all die of cancer. And there's a new initiative called the Functional Dog Collaborative out of Harvard. And rather than breeding for conformation or to win at a dog show, they're now looking at breeding based on genetics. And we know where the markers are. So we can actually breed a dog that is not going to have hip dysplasia or a dog is not going to be aggressive. So it's not everyone, like here in Northern Idaho, nobody's going to do that. But the other kind of breeders that are really interested in that you're going to be able to find a dog that a golden, a flat coated, a boxer that's probably not going to get cancer, have a lot of these other conditions. So we know a lot more. All right, here's another one for you Scrabble players. A cat's whiskers are called vibrissae, Vibrissae. And these are not just for looks. These are deep set, highly sensitive hairs. And their detection is they use it for wind detection. The main thing is they use it to judge if they can fit through an opening. So it's for body language signaling also. So wind, see if they can fit through an opening and singling. So if you see a cat's whiskers are forward, cat's friendly and curious. If their whiskers are a few pet care tips, and then we'll take questions. Is that okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Everybody? All right. Okay. My number one thing not to do to save money without shortchanging your pet is don't feed those super premium foods that you see advertised or promoted. It is the biggest waste of money in pet care. So I'm talking Farmer's Dog, Solid Gold, Holistic, Fresh Pet. There was a thing Consumer Reports did a few years ago where they went to the 33 veterinary schools in the United States talking to boarded veterinary nutritionists. Have you ever in the last year seen a case of a nutritional deficiency come to the veterinary school? Zero, not one, none. Have you seen cases of nutritional excesses? All of them had. That's the little old lady that just gives chicken because the dog won't eat anything else, is not balanced. I get introduced all the time as America's veterinarian. Of course, everybody would want me to feed their food. I don't take anything free. I don't take parasite control free. I don't take any food free. I buy my own stuff. I feed Greener Pro Plan. If I was buying something in the grocery store, I'd probably buy Iams. Costco's Kirkland brand is a very good food. So if you feel like strutting your stuff because your dog takes a $5 poop, knock yourself out, but it doesn't do any good. You don't want to feed the lowest end either though, because really what you want is one that has a shiny coat, that has nice firm stools, smaller stools, but you don't have to get a fortune there. If your dog has that problem with thunderstorm phobias, don't let it suffer this year. I told you about using a fabric softener sheet. Thunder shirts work in about 40% of animals. And there's a product you can get from your veterinarian called Sileo, S-I-L-E-O, that works every time. In fact, I live on this horse ranch. We were shoeing one of our horses today, and we used the same product for horses on this. You just wipe it on their gums. But this horse does not like to be shooed. You wipe it on its gums, about 20 minutes later, it's just like, hey man, this is nice, like Cheech and Chong. As far as keeping your dog's teeth clean, there is no difference between wet and dry food. And mainly it's just about getting the tartar off not the buccal, but not the lingual, the tongue, but the buccal side, the cheek side of the teeth. So like on Quinby and our dogs, we just take a little finger cot with a little toothpaste and just rub the outside of their teeth off. If you want something that's an edible toothbrush, I'd get an enzyme impregnated rawhide chew with the rawhide sourced in Canada or Mexico. Greenies and a milk-borne brushing chews also have the veterinary oral healthcare seal of approval, which is not easy to get. Let me look here. Oh, I'll tell you something. Check out joincompanion.com. There's a new product that I've never put my name to any product, and I don't think I'm going to on this one either, but I am wildly excited about this product. Look at joincompanion.com. This product sits in your living room or your kitchen, wherever you want it. It trains your dog. It trains your dog to sit, stay, come, lie down, roll over. It trains the dog to walk to the camera and away from the camera, walk sideways across the camera. So it can do, like, if your doorbell rings, it can train your dog to bark 3 times and then come back and wait by the machine so they don't excessively bark or jump up on people. But when it's training them, it's diagnosing them. So there are some clinical studies. It is more accurate at detecting lameness than boarded veterinary orthopedists. It is really accurate on detecting skin issues. It can detect fear, anxiety, and stress. Like, we've been using one as a demo, and we noticed the dog was 1 time a day when we were gone that the dog would start doing more shivering, shaking, panting, yawning, all those things. And it's when the people came to for the lawn service to do the weed eater, so these weird sounds. So it plays with your dog anytime he wants to play. So rather than putting food in a bowl, you can feed 10% or 100% of your food. So enough on that, but it's getting sold out. So if your take a look at Joint Companion and see what you think. Oh, definitely don't feed out of food bowls. You don't have to get Companion, but we haven't used food bowls for 20 years here. There's 100 boarded veterinary behaviorists by the American College of Veterinary Behavior. Fear Free's head of research actually is a Canadian, Gary Landsberg, who lives in Toronto, and he's boarded in the US and in Europe. But food puzzles or food dispensing devices is what you feed. So we have wolves up here. I've seen a wolf within 100 yards of our house, and it takes 6 steps to eat in the wild. It takes detect your prey, pursue it, apprehend it, kill it, compete with the pack. Step 6, my turn to belly up to the beast and eat. When you put food in a bowl, you've gone right to step 6. And so by using food puzzles or food dispensing devices, you feed the body and you feed the mind. It takes memory, it takes skill, it takes manipulation. And also it helps dogs to not wolf their food down. In the wild, if you're looking at wolves and coyotes, foxes, 80% of their waking hours is spent in pursuit of food. 80%. So you can't take 80% that's genetic and take it down into 2 minutes morning and evening. I'm a big fan of probiotics. 80% of the immune system is in the gut. Not only is it good for healthy coat and everything else, but the one I like the best is Purina Pro Plan 40 Flora, FORTIFLOEA, 40 Flora. I also love fish oil. It doesn't need to be any brand. You don't need to get a veterinary brand, Costco brand, Walmart brand, wherever you want to buy it, Walgreens brand. Give 1,000 milligrams per 10 pound to body weight. It's good for brain health, it's good for joint health, and it's good for coat condition. The number one thing you can do to prevent skin problems. So the number one reason people take pets to the vet is skin problems. The number one thing we diagnose are dental problems. The number one thing you can do to prevent skin problems is to keep the hair and dander and dust mites and stuff off of your pet. So if you're using a Swiffer and you see all the stuff that's on that Swiffer, that's the same thing that's on your dog's coat. They're just like a 4-legged Swiffer, a 4-legged dust mop. So keep your house clean, bathe them once a week. I actually like Earth Bath as my favorite kind of shampoo. And when there's allergy season, which is coming up really soon, every time they come in from outside, wipe them down with a baby wipe, because you want to wipe the pollen off of them so they don't self-groom. If you are exhausted or immobile or at work and you want to exercise your dog, use a Chuck It. It's a toy that you can throw a tennis ball about a mile and pick up a slobber slick ball. I a lot of times take my dog's kibble and use a slingshot and go out in the yard and shoot each kibble with a slingshot. And so it goes out in the grass and the dog has to find it. I make it come back, I shoot another one, it has to come back and find it. And we actually have one of our outdoor dogs is an athlete, and we have it looks like a tail of a lion or something hooked on the back of a remote control car. And we actually run it around so the dog's chasing this tail that's hooked onto a little remote control car. There is a CBD finally that works for if your dog has separation anxieties. Thunder shirts help, pheromones help. It has to be either Be Calm. There's 2 brands that have clinical studies. Be Serene, excuse me, just the letter B, Serene, or Adaptal. And the only CBD product that has clinical trials is Elevet, ELLEVET. And one last thing. And remember, I don't have any commercial relationship with any of this stuff, I'm telling you. So this is just like you're in the exam room with me. If you have an ID tag, make sure you put your mobile phone number on it. And number 2, the number 1 best rated GPS tracker is called Tractive, TRACTIVE. It works globally. I have it on all of our dogs. And those ones that you others see, the wearables that are kind of like a smartwatch and stuff, 80% of those end up in the drawer within 3 months. So Animo, Whistle, all of those things, you're not gonna end up using them. All right, Kathleen. I guess I could take a breath now.
Okay, that's amazing. So I'm going to unmute everybody. And if you could start putting things into the chat, Where am I? For Dr. Becker.
You guys are pretty smart, but I hope I taught you something. And by the way, I am a science-based person on there. So when you write books, you can't just, I learned this early on, you can't just say it's true. You've got to prove it's true.
6 years old, 8 years
Did
old.
you?
Yeah.
4. Okay.
Melanie, do you have a question?
Yeah, we're just typing it in. Do you want me
Okay.
just to say it?
Sure.
Okay, we have a 4-year-old cat, a female cat, and she's on special food for kidney crystals in her urine, I think. And
Yes.
she's getting so fat. And I'm wondering if that food will make her fat or if there's something else that's making her fat. She goes outside. We try to give her some exercise, although she's pretty immobile most of the time.
Melanie, this is
Yes.
funny. I just, so I still practice as a veterinarian, and they had a cat that was not eating for 3 days. No, this is not your cat, but I think this is funny. It wasn't eating for 3 days. We took a radiograph and its stomach was full of food. Like, okay, it's not eating. How does it full of food? Well, it was going to the neighbors. Their new neighbor came in, had a really tasty food out. So the cat was going out, it was going to the neighbors. And so it wasn't starving to death. There is a diet that you can use with crystals called metabolic diet, MD. I talked to your veterinarian about it, but it's Hill's Prescription Diet MD. And that's the one that I found the best for getting a little weight off a cat.
We do have an
And by
appointment
the
coming
way,
up. We have an appointment coming
and
up,
by
but
the
like
way,
you said, it's hard to get in.
it's really hard to get in. The other
Yeah.
thing is with cats, the probiotic I told you about, 44, really helps with that. And there's
Okay.
also a probiotic called Calming Care by the same Phenopropyl Calming Care, because they found out a lot of cats that are higher stress levels, fear, anxiety, and stress levels, are more likely to have these crystals because of a pH difference with high cortisol levels. So
Great, thank
is
you,
your
doctor.
cat is she kind of a scaredy cat or not?
No,
Is she pretty
not at all.
sensitive? No, laid back. I would go with the 40 Flora, and also talk to your veterinarian about MD.
Thank you.
And I like your artwork in the background too.
Oh, thank you. A local artist.
Okay, I'll take Diane Reeder next. Diane, are you unmuted? Can you speak?
Yes, she's not here at the moment, but I'll take over for her.
Okay. So Diane had a question, or else you put the question in for her?
No, she did. She put it in and then she had to go to a meeting.
Oh, okay. So let me read it for you then. If you have a healthy, active 11-year dachshund with a stage 3 heart murmur and a broken tooth, is it better to have it extracted and risk the anesthesia, or leave it alone and let her live out her years?
Okay, I'm gonna. My dad used to always say, don't get up on both sides of the bed, which basically meant don't be duplicitous. If it was my 13-year-old, I'd let it live out its life, although there is some pain associated with that. So I would use something for an analgesic that you would give for the pain, but not put the dog, even though it's really safe. 13 years is getting up there. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it for the money, but more importantly, I wouldn't do it for the risk. But I would talk to them about something you could give for pain. And compounding pharmacies now can pay. You don't have to try to shove the pills down their throat or get liquid that ends up on you or on the ceiling. They can put it in a flavor. They can actually send you different taste tabs, and your pet can see which one they like the taste of, and they'll put the medicine in there. So it's like cheddar cheese and bacon. It's honey and marshmallows. It's just crazy, delicious stuff.
Well, she doesn't even appear to be in pain. She's just enjoying her life. She's She eats everything. She hasn't changed her eating habits at all.
Well, one thing they can't tell you, one thing you might look at, I'll tell you if you can see, if you flip the lip of your dog and you see tartar on one side and not the other side, you can tell your dog's chewing just on one side of their mouth. And it'd be interesting to see if it was the side that had the broken tooth. So I have another.
I brush her every night, and her teeth actually are pretty good. There's not a lot of tartar on both of them, or any side actually.
Why?
Even when we took her in just for her checkup, they said, "Well, her teeth are fine," and then she said, "Oh, they noticed, oh, there's a broken tooth here," but I don't know if it's.
Well, maybe there's a good chance then the root is not exposed. It might be broken. Is it a canine tooth? Tooth?
No, it's I guess it's a mole at the back, in the middle of the jaw.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so if it's fractured, that's. And you know, the other thing here's one of the things that happens a lot of times with me as a veterinarian. People come in and they're worried that I'm going to say, you know what, your dog's in the last chapter of its life. You ought to think about putting sleep. A lot of times it's underdiagnosed or undertreated pain. And the other thing is canine cognitive disorder. And it's like Alzheimer's in humans. And the thing with the brain, you know, the blood-brain barrier, it's really hard to get infection in the brain, and it's really hard to get antibiotics or anything in the brain. But there's free radical damage to the brain. And there's a diet out from Prina called NeuroCare that is unbelievable. It has, each serving that you would give a dog has the equivalent of about 100 capsules of vitamin E, but it's not just vitamin E, it's this coconut oil that's been, where it's split, so they're called medium chain triglycerides, and that can cross the blood-brain barrier. I've had dogs that come in that are slowing down, they're not playing, they'll go to the door and stand by the wrong side of the door. They'll find them in the room with their, like, they're in there like, what am I doing in this room? And we'll put them on NeuroCare, and 30 days later, that dog is digging through. Matter of fact, I had one 2 weeks ago. They dug down through its toy box that hadn't been touched for a couple of years, found his favorite toy and threw it for the owner to play fetch.
Is that a prescription that you have to order, or can you just get it?
I think you can probably order it through Chewy or online, but I'm not sure up in Canada. It's called NeuroCare by Prina.
NeuroCare. Yeah,
NeuroCare.
in Canada, we can't get anything in Canada.
So,
Hey, you know what, by the way, I'm not sucking up to you guys either. I've been in 91 countries, and when people say, what's your favorite country? And my wife and I are both the same here, by the way. We say, do you want the sexy answer or the real answer? And the real answer is Canada. And I always describe it. First, it's beautiful, but it's like a nation of Labrador retrievers, man. They're the nicest people in Canada. But we got to get to the Maritimes sometime and see the other part. Everybody tells me that's really nice, but the sexy answer would be Croatia or Bali in Indonesia, or probably Morocco or Portugal.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
let me call on Natasha in Serbia. Natasha, did you want to speak, or should I read your message?
Yes, you can read my message. You have probably better accent.
No. Bichon had triglyceride 40 at routine check. Blood taken after 14 hours, not eating. So the veterinarian put her on low-fat food for a few days and took blood after 24 hours fasting. Now everything is fine, but AST is 78, so high, and glutamine is also high. EKG is good, abdominal ultrasound too. We're waiting for thyroid hormone results. I'm scared and confused.
So
First of all,
yeah.
my son's been to Serbia. He's 33 years old and has been to 70 countries, so he loves Serbia. Natasha, I'm going to be honest here. I'm a so-so veterinarian as far as just talent-wise. So if you were to see me in the exam room, I love pets and I love people, and I'm pretty darn good at diagnostics and a treatment plan. But some of these complicated cases like this, especially older pets that have these multimodal conditions, those are tough. And since I do a lot of stuff other than practice, and I'm a lousy surgeon, I went to help the pets coming out of Ukraine, and I was not going to be able to help any dog that needed orthopedic surgery that nobody else could do. If I give you my email address, would you send that to me so I can consult with some people, and then I will get back to you?
Yes, I also just want to say that dog is not old. Dog is 6 years
Yeah.
old, and she looks perfectly healthy. But what is puzzling me, how did we get from super terrible results to normal results in few days? And those triglycerides are really, really problematic. It's like 25 times normal. So I would like to write to you, yeah.
What, you know what, Natasha, I put it in there for Kathleen. Sometimes I think sometimes the lab work is off too. I wouldn't necessarily count on it until I took another blood test.
It was the second. Okay, so they had a terrible result, and they asked us to come again, and they took a blood tomorrow, and we got the same. So it's unless the people in the lab are drunk, it's probably right.
Yeah. Well, if you send me the history and the stuff, and I know,
yeah, please.
It's a good thing I have a network. I'll touch base with the top vets in the United States and get back to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, Natasha, would you agree there's only one greatest dog in the world, and each of us have him or her? We all think our own dogs is the world's best.
Of course.
There's no doubt about it. Of course. Hey, by the way, if you brought a dachshund in, we were talking about Mr. Reader. I always say they're 2 dogs long and a half a dog tall.
It's absolutely true.
I just wanted to share one thing. When my mother got Alzheimer's, and we had to move her to my place, which she didn't like. She wanted to stay in her own apartment, and she was very nervous. Basically, the dog saved our lives because of the dog in the house. She was calmer, and she actually accepted the fact that she has to live with us. So it's not only the best dog, it's a dog who saved our family.
Oh, I got to show you guys something. I don't know if you can see this, but can you see that dog sitting over there? So we're using the Roomba. So I put a bunch of, cushions, 2 cushions, and 2 dog beds. You see that dog on top of it by the lamp?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it. It's white.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Talk about what's that old thing about the putting the pee in the bed? My gosh, like a mountain climber here. Little eyes looking at me. Well, I put my email in the thing there. If any of you ever have a question for me, I'm pretty good about getting back. I travel quite a bit, but if you ever need a second opinion or have a question, happy to answer it for you. But do go to Fear Free Happy Homes. If you want, zoos do a better job of enrichment than people do in their own homes. And there's these dogs and cats, their bodies are built for motion. We got to let them strut their genetic stuff. Like we have one dog, it's a scent hound, and we put little packets of scent with a little kibble in different places around our ranch, not too far, within maybe 200 yards of our house. And like our horses love carrots, so we take carrots and put them out in different places around the pasture. So they're grazing, but they find this little, it's like gambling, I guess. But we got to do more. And there's a lot of stuff on Fear Free Happy Homes you'll find. We have barn cats, for example, up in a big hay thing. We even put their stuff in little yogurt cups in all different places around those Lego blocks of hay, so they have to go around and find it.
Oh, Jeff Peterman is asking, would you please ask which book of his would be informative for first-time cat owners?
It's called Your Cat, the Owner's Manual. Your Cat, the Owner's Manual. If you have a dog that is, and I wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul books. If you love those true short stories, there's several Chicken Soup for the Soul books I wrote. Probably the two books I'm the most proud of is the one you showed, Kathleen, From Fearful to Fear Free, because it's looking at the emotional well-being of dogs, and the other one would be The Healing Power of Pets that I wrote with the New York Times reporter.
Now, we have another question. Let's find it again. Lydia, if we have more time, I would like to ask Dr. Becker about the use of Simparica Trio versus over-the-counter medication against ticks.
Okay, my favorite, Simparica Trio, is my second favorite. That's by Zoetis. My first favorite is Brevecto. Brevecto's by Merck. And you guys have to know, I could use anyone I wanted to, and I could get anyone I wanted to for free, but I don't do it. I buy it. I buy everything because I don't want to ever do something because somebody has given it to me. But Brevecto, the reason I like it, you don't have to give it as often. You give it every 3 months.
Is it also over the counter? Is it also prescription drug?
It's prescription. But what you can do is, what I would do is get the prescription from your veterinarian and buy it. Do you guys have Chewy up there? Can you order from Chewy?
No,
I don't know.
I
Can't,
don't know.
we can't. It's not in-
Chewy, you might check if you can check and see if you can. If you can, I'd buy it through Chewy. But you know, one other thing I want to tell you about your veterinarian. When I went to veterinary school, I got in 1976. There were 16 applicants for every opening in veterinary school. Right now, there's only 1.3 applicants for every opening in veterinary school. So if there were 1,000 applicants, there's 1,000 openings, there's 1,300 applicants. What happened? You used to hear it's harder to get in veterinary school than medical school. It used to be, but the economic model is so poor. So in the US, the average student coming out of school is $175,000 in debt. The average starting salary is $90,000. So you shouldn't spend more than 20% of your net income on debt service. It's untenable. If you don't have a spouse or partner that can pay the bills, or a family that helps you graduate with little to no debt, it's impossible. So veterinary bills, like I just went, I had, let's see, 2001, I think, had 3 dogs die in 1 year. All of them had cancer. All of them went to the veterinary school at Washington State University, and it was $6,000 for each one of them. That's a lot of money. And we just had a little dog sick. I don't know where he's at, though, the one's over there, and had ulcerative colitis. And I was out of town. Teresa took him in, $2,400. It seems expensive. It's like, you know, we don't have, you have healthcare covered down here. Most of us have health insurance and things like that, but veterinarians aren't making. If I was on your side, it would seem like they're just killing it because you can't get in and all the stuff. But I know from the other side, it just thought maybe you'd want to know stuff. Very high suicide rate too.
Yeah.
In fact, we're helping underwrite a movie called The Cost of Caring. And why is it, my sister's a physician, why is it so hard? Why do you see, that looks like Kelowna, Trevor, where is that?
The way it's actually the South Okanagan. So if you go from where you are over
Yeah.
to the mountain ranges to the Okanagan Valley, it's
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, and then
Oh,
they
yeah,
have that
okay.
canal that goes down, that canal
Yep.
where everybody floats going down. Yeah. Oh, I love that area. Oh, that's
the
so
wine
pretty.
too.
Yeah,
so-
you had a bad fire a few years ago. I remember
Oh
up
yeah,
there.
just behind our
You were
house.
there.
It's about
Yeah.
100 meters away from our house. So
Oh gosh. Oh, so glad you didn't have a problem there. So
Yeah.
here's why it's a higher suicide risk. One, you're running a small business. Number two, it's long hours. Number three, it's life and death decisions. I mean, there's very seldom a day that you don't make some decision that the pet's going to live or die. You see a lot of pets die. And there's a deep connection. Like my sister is a nephrologist, and she knows one organ, and she sees somebody for one little snapshot of their life. And myself as a veterinarian, I'll see this thing. Sometimes I'll pull it from its mother, wiggling from its mother, and be there when it gets the final grace. And we become very connected with these families. So it's tough. And to see this beloved family member that, is naturally dies or you aid that along into the final grace, it is a very tough business. And now online bullying, that's the other thing. You'll get people that come on and just, there's a result they didn't expect or something, and then they bully people and people pile on stuff.
Yeah.
Melanie's made a comment that we had one dog put down and the vet cried as it was the 8th one that night.
Oh, wow.
Oh God. Yeah, I can't, one thing, and I've asked other veterinarians this, when we lose our own pets, you have never seen wailing, mourning like that, because I'll have to say goodbye to a pet and then say hello to a kitten. And so you just, it's so fast, you can't fully grieve. And then when you lose one of your own pets, I think it's just stored up and just released like out of a dam. It's just, I've had it to where you're crying, you can't see, you can't catch your breath. And there's a lot of good. I don't make it sound, you can be financially successful and emotionally wealthy. People respect you as a veterinarian. It's very challenging because it's one time, and I'm not a mixed animal practitioner, but one time I was forced into it, and I saw an elk with an abscess, and then I was doing a ranch call, then had a home euthanasia on an elderly dog, then stopped and saw a dairy cow with mastitis, and then went back to the clinic and saw a kitten and a bird. So multiple species. I mean, an elk, a bird, an elderly dog, a baby, an infant cat, a dairy cow. So your internist, radiologist, pharmacist, behaviorist, multiple species, multiple age groups. It's extremely interesting.
It's a great profession.
Yeah. Well, Kathleen, should we call it a day?
Well, have you
Did
got
you
a
get-
couple of minutes to tell us about your travels around the world and what you do? when
Oh
you're-
yeah, I sure do. I was the first ever practice management speaker at the World Small Animal Veterinary Association meeting. It was in Durban, South Africa. I'll tell you a funny story about that. Two funny stories. I was down there and I went in this shop and I saw on the top shelf this crazy looking thing about a foot tall. We had these shards of glass coming out of it, and these little amulets that were tied onto it. It was dusty, and I go, "What's that?" And these two girls in the shop go, "Oh God, that thing creeps us out. It's this voodoo doll." And I said, "Oh, can I see it?" And they didn't want to touch the thing. They put it down there, and I'm like, "Wow, this thing is, oh, that is amazing." And anyway, I bought it, and then I bought these spears that were about 6 feet long, these reproduction spears. I go to get on the plane to fly home, and some of you may be old enough to remember when you went to check in, and they used to have those cardboard garment bags where you could hang stuff inside of them. And I thought, oh, they'll have one of those, and I can stick those spears inside there. You guys know what I'm talking about. They don't have them anymore, but they were a cardboard garment bag. Where you put your suit or something. So I get there and they go, "Oh, we don't have those." And I go, "Well, you told me I was going to have them. What am I going to do with them?" And she says, "Listen, you're late. You're going to miss the plane. Just go and they'll put them on the plane for you." So I'm running through the airport in Johannesburg with two spears. and I'm trying to go, and I'm trying to go like this, like this, and pretty soon I go like this. I'm running down there with these 2 spears, and I get to the plane, and they go, you can't bring these on the plane. You got to remember, this is probably 25 years plus ago, 30, no, longer than that, 35 years ago. You can't bring this on the plane. I go, well, they told me I could do it. And they go, just give them to me and get on the plane. I literally, the door shut. I'm on the plane. Now we're at JFK. And it's those luggage belts that come out that are flat with those little rings that turn. The very first thing that comes out with those spears. And all of a sudden, I heard somebody next to me, I wonder who those belong to. And it was the voice of Darth Vader, the James Earl Jones. That's who was standing next to me. And I go, those would be mine. And it just sounds crazy to think about that. Now that voodoo doll, I bring that voodoo doll home, and I thought my wife was a school teacher. So I set it right on the counter. When she comes in from the garage, she's going to see it. She's like, that is grotesque. You're not keeping that in the house. So I took it down to where my office was in this warehouse and put it away in this little box, looked like a coffin. And about 20 years later, I was telling somebody that story, and this young girl that was working for me said, oh, I'd like to see it. And I go, oh, yeah, I'd like to see it again too. So I went out and got it out, and I thought, I'm going to put it on my desk. So I put it on my desk, and in that week, I got a notice I was being audited by the IRS. I got bit by a brown recluse spider, and my dad committed suicide. And I'm like, all right, this thing's gone. So yeah, so actually somebody that worked for me said, you got to sell it or burn it. And I said, I don't want to sell it to anybody. So he went out and burned the thing, and that was strange. But I've been, just went over 6 million miles with Delta. I became a speaker for on behalf of veterinary medicine. So I lectured to the profession on behalf of the profession. Used to travel about 30 times a year to go to New York to do TV. At this stage now where my wife is part, her dad was French Canadian, and her grandma, great grandma on her mother's side was full-blooded Cherokee. Back when the Irish and Native Americans were kind of third-class citizens who would often marry. So has that beautiful skin, the high cheekbones, and I didn't know this till a dentist told us later, but Native Americans, depends on how much percentage your blood is, but they have grooves on their 2 front incisors in the back. So when my daughter got married, her father-in-law was a dentist. He goes, do you know you're Native American? She goes, yeah, I do. Do you guys know that? I didn't know that at those incisors.
Yeah.
But now we're down to, I've been to all the great museums of the world, the Uffizi, the Hermitage, all of them. I am going for our 45th anniversary next year, going to go to, I'll probably say this wrong, Apulia, the boot of Italy, go to Mount Vesuvius, Cinque Terre, Sardinia, Sicily, Malta, Tunisia, and then the new Egyptian museum has opened up at the pyramids. And so I want to go back, and haven't seen it for years, but I want to see the new one.
Wow.
Still got the thirst for travel.
Forever.
I drive a 21-year-old pickup truck. I don't have a fancy watch. I wear Carhartt. I've spent a lot of money on travel. I'll say that.
Archaeologists call those teeth shovel-shaped incisors.
Shovel-shaped? Oh, I'd write that down.
My husband's an archaeologist.
Oh, okay.
Shovel-shaped incisors.
Well, did any of you learn anything today? That was my goal. I got to whip out the good stuff and see if I can get somebody to know there's a right paw, a left paw preference. That there's the way they. It's really funny if you watch your dogs now. Watch if they have a right tail or left tail preference, and watch if they have a right paw or left paw preference. It's usually hardly anybody ever notices it.
So on behalf of everyone, Dr. Marty Becker, I'm going to say, yes, we have definitely learned a great deal
Absolutely.
today. You have really covered the gamut on cats and dogs especially. And on behalf of Toronto Mensa, please accept our heartfelt thanks for your really comprehensive and interesting talk today. And as a sign of our appreciation, we will be sending you a small gift, so you can be watching for that.
The voodoo
Oh,
doll.
thank you. A voodoo doll. Oh God, no! No. Oh,
Thank you
that's
to
great.
everyone
Well, I
today for participating.
I really enjoyed it, you guys. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Okay,
Bye.
Thank you.
bye-bye. I'll end it now.
Thank you.